Hey, welcome to the Vinyl Village Garage, because I live in a vinyl village and this is a garage. I know, a clever name, right? Nonetheless, we're going to get into here today some body work, some block sanding. Last go around, if you guys hadn't seen or just your first time checking us out, we epoxy primed this car. That was kind of for the purpose of I had done so much body work from end to end, had bare metal exposed, a lot of body filler going on. I was kind of losing track of where I was at and just felt it was time to seal the car back up to protect it from the elements. So I went ahead and hit the whole thing with an epoxy. While it was kind of still wet and dry, the body work was looking really nice. Everything's looking really clean. Didn't see a whole lot of things that needed more attention or addressing. So I went ahead and hit it with a coat of this high build primer. That's this goldish yellow stuff you see on the car. And this is the first time I've used this brand. It's a polyester one. It's supposed to not shrink as much as some of your 2K urethane primers. So I'm hoping that solves some of the problems we had with sand marks popping back up 2 to 3 years later. But well, I guess we'll find out. But so far, it's sprayed out great. Now we're going to find out how well it sands. That's what this video is going to be about. Using these blocks here. I got different shapes, different sizes. When do you use them and how do you use them? Because if you look at the side of this car, beautiful clean byline from the front of the fender back. We don't want to lose that. Got a byline here about halfway through the door. Round wheel well arches that require some complex sanding. I'm going to say right now, I never typically do anything bare hand when it comes to block sanding. I've got different blocks, different shapes for the purposes of all these different contours. So I'm going to shed some light when to use them, how I use them, and the results that I get when I'm done. Now, again, I like to say this is the right way, the wrong way, and then the BBG way. Well, this is how I've done it and the results I get. There's many opinions, many thoughts, but I'm going to show you how I do it and the results that we get. But first off, let me show you what we're working with. Now, of course, to the camera view viewers, this stuff looks like gold paint. I mean, like 1969, 70 gold paint. It really does, but it's really not. It's just how the primer kind of laid out in the lighting here in my garage. There's about 2 coats here, 1 coat there, so you see the gray kind of bleeding through, so it gives you that weird, I don't know, I guess metallic look. But nonetheless, that's what this stuff is right here. This stuff's supposed to be able to go over direct to metal. You could put it on bare metal. It goes over off top of things. It's supposed to be relatively durable. It has a zinc in it to help prevent corrosion, but I still did the epoxy anyway. Our typical finishing putty here in case we find some blemishes that need some work. We're going to hit everything with about 220 paper to start with, really kind of level that stuff off, then finish it with 320. And these are all of our different blocks. So you'll see these are about the same dimension, but this one's a whole lot stiffer. I can barely get this one to bend, and this one, on the other hand, it folds almost in half. So there's just a time and a place for these. I do have a round block. I don't use a lot, but this is my go-to about 90% of the time. I just love this thing. It's actually a billion miles on it, I think, now, but some of the best money I've ever spent. Some people have different opinions on Durablock, but I think they're fantastic. I think they're great. I wish they'd sponsor me and give me some more free goodies, but that's the dream, I hope. But anyway, enough of that. What we're going to do, though, we're going to start here with the front fender. The front fender's got enough going on. I think that gets you the idea how to block it. Then you can continue to use the same technique down the entire side of the car. But we're going to start basically just to the front corner and work our way around. And then maybe we'll get to the hood and then the other side and the back of the car. Yeah, it's a lot. But the best thing to do when it comes to doing body work, don't look at it as an entire project. Break it down. Let's focus on just the front fender. Make that's all good. Then we'll work our way to the door. Don't let it become overwhelming. Break it up into steps. Because right now, if you look at this, the whole car needs block sanded. You almost want to quit before you start. But we're not going to do that. We're going to start up here, and let's get this thing going. All right, let's call this the beginning of the blocking process. Now, like I said, we high build primer this entire car because it had a lot going on. But the first thing I'd like to do is identify any blemishes that are not going to block sand out. Basically, a low spot, a ding, a scratch, or something that's deep enough that I know it's not going to come out with block sanding. Like here's number 1 right here. Check this out. It looks like a number 4. I don't know where this came from, how it happened, but that's definitely deep enough. No matter what I do for blocking here, this high build primer is probably not going to come out. So I need to fill that blemish in. I keep looking around here on the fender. If I get the light just right, here's the body line on this fender. You see a little dent right here. I must have totally missed that. There's just a whole lot going on. So I'm going to mix a little filler for here and then here and fill these spots in before we get too carried away. I've actually got just a little spot right there. It's not going to take much, but I'd like to fill these in first before we start blocking this fender. Now again, I don't need a whole lot. We're going to make just the tiniest little amount of this stuff. And again, this stuff's not cheap, so I don't like using any more than I have to. That's probably way too much, but that's how that goes. A little bit of hardener. typically try to get all these spots cleaned up before you put the primer on, but I'll tell you, it's a lot to prep an entire car. And it's kind of nice to have a nice new foundation to start over with. So, all right, now we're good and mixed up. Go ahead and just take care of this little dent here. Not gonna take much. That should work for that spot. We got this little spot here. That takes care of that one. And we'll do this last one here. Now, you can see it looks like a number 4. I will drag it right off here. Leave it just like that. Now when that cures, and I go ahead and block sand the whole side of this car, that'll take care of those bad spots. I'm going to start by getting this all roughed in, where I had that body line dent there. We're going to get this really close, and then we'll use the block. We'll do the entire fender nice and even, but this is going to take the most sanding because it's on a little thicker. So let's get this squared away first, and then we'll proceed with blocking out the entire thing. Again, this is a 220 grit, which is a little soft for cutting this, but it's actually doing a pretty good job. Now, I'm keeping the block at an angle like this on the top, and then I come down here, and I don't go over the body line. I'm going to stop right at that body line until I get this thing shaped into place. Now you can kind of make out where that dent was at right there, but other than that, I think that should do. Now, let's do the entire fender. All right, now when it comes to the block sanding, now there's a body line here and a body line here. We're wanting this panel from here to here to look to be the same radius, same height, and same everything. So when you look down the side of the car, you don't see any dents or deviations. So with that in mind, I guess how I'd like to block sand. I'm going to try to block sand from this line to this line. So I'm going to keep following the same pattern. This is upside down, but I'm going to demonstrate. We're going to kind of go at an angle this way, and keep going like this, and keep working it until we get everything leveled off. We'll do this direction, then we'll come back and go this direction. But I'm going to work from body line to body line. I don't want to just start here and only here, because it may not then end up with a line or a crease or a wave right there. So you want to keep working as long as you can, or the longest stroke as possible. Now I know sometimes you're going to work a little bit. The idea is to kind of work all the way end to end. That way, when it's all said and done, you're averaging out the entire thing from sight line to sight line. That's going to help, distract or blend it out where you don't see the problems. That's I guess the key to block sanding to me. So we're going to start working from here to here, and we'll see how this goes. But the question becomes, when do you stop sanding? Well, you can use a guide coat, whatever you need to do, but I know I have this gold color primer. Underneath it is gray. I'm going to try to get where this gold color, you can see here, it's like a darker and then a lighter color. Well, I want to stop when everything's all the same color, or when it's gray and the same color. If I hit bare metal, I've gone too far. So let's go ahead and start hitting here to see what happens. And again, as this fender kind of comes up to the top, it has a bit of a radius up, so I'm going to kind of follow that with a sanding block. And again, when it gets to this byline here, I'm not going to go past that byline. I'm going to let the block slide over top of the same angle. So I'm not going to keep rolling the block, or I'm going to stop. So when I'm all done sanding, it should actually be a nice, clean line. Now we're already starting to see a little bit of a story here. Check this thing out here. Low spot, low spot. That's where I put our little filler at. But you can definitely see the contrast in color. That's why I don't think I like using a guide coat for the most part. But I don't see any metal popping through yet, so we can keep going until we try to get rid of where it all looks like this. There's just spots where it's still low spots kind of kicking in. And this may be a low spot in the metal. It's going to require a little bit of body filler. So let's keep working here. Now, I'm starting to see some gray pop through. I need to probably stop sanding. Let me get you in here a little closer and see what I'm talking about. All right, look at this here. Now, this has actually come out okay. Obviously, a little bit of a low spot. I could probably sand here a little further because I don't see any gray popping through here yet. Come this way, that's our epoxy underneath. A little bit of a dent there, maybe. But here's the problem. This is not sanding out at all whatsoever. So that's actually probably relatively a low spot that's not going to sand. You start to see the gray just poking through. That's that body filler I just put on here, but you can see the gray poking through here. So this actual area here is going in a little more filler, I think, before we can get that thing cleaned up. So unfortunately, I didn't get as good as I thought. But again, like I said, not that big a deal. We're not the finishing stage, and this is what we're going to find out before we paint the car. So I'm going to keep doing the same thing to the whole fender here and see if any other spots need any filler. We'll go ahead and do all the filler work one last time on this fender, hopefully. So the question becomes, when do you stop sanding? And if it all looked like this right here, again, this is with 220, got little spots there, but you can see it's all one even color. And at this point, then I hit it with 320. Well, this here, clearly the sandpaper going over here to here, that is still a low spot. That's going to need some filler. I think just a little bit here, really just a skim coat. I use that new metal body spreader I have, and just put a skim coat on all this, and we'll try to hit it again. We've got a little bit here, but we haven't sanded the wheel well arch yet, but I got just little deviations here. Now, you could sand these smooth and get rid of the low spots, but it would show up as a little bit of a dimple in the fender. So I think the same thing. Really just a real skim coat to kind of level all that off. So it shouldn't take much. Kind of like when I filled in the number 4 here. That thing is all nice and even and level. So we'll go ahead and just do the same thing. Just skim coat all of this. And hopefully that'll take care of it. Got a little bit of a dent there. But hope that fills in some of the blanks. When do you stop sanding? There's actually some deep sand scratch marks that I didn't get out. So this is why I went ahead and painted it. Because it's just too much. I thought it was straight. Thought it was great. This is going to tell me more of the story here. So anyway, we'll go ahead and work on this part here next. Now, same thing. This has got a radius this way, and of course, the wheel well arch just the same. So a flat block just isn't going to work that great. It's going to gouge it and leave some divots in it. So I have this little heavier one. It's actually probably a little too stiff. I think it's going to do the same thing. So that's why I have that softer block that I have. It's more pliable and more bend. It'll bend to the contour a lot better. I'm going to start working it kind of like I did the rest of it. I'm going to work from this edge to here, same thing at about a 45, 30 degree angle, and keep working it until I get the whole thing planed and leveled off. But it's actually coming up pretty even here pretty quick. So I don't think it's going to take too long. And this will actually find any of the bad spots still just the same and keep from getting any kind of ripples or waves in it. So we'll work this out here, and we'll put a skim coat of putty on these spots here. We got the wheel well lip all sanded. That looks really nice. Again, still have some low spots here, but we get to the front of the fender, something else I want to show you. Of course, this has too tight of a radius, but it's typical flat block on. So the same idea. We'll use the super flexible block, kind of push it to follow the contour, and just let it glide across the panel until we can highlight all the bad spots, if there is any, and just keep working it. Again, I keep enough pressure on it and holding the camera, a little bit of a trick, but we want it to follow the shape of the body. We're going to do kind of the same thing. Take it up to the body line here, down to the next spot down here. You're starting to see a little bit of a pattern here where it's a little bit low, but I don't see any gray primer yet, so I can keep on working on it, and maybe that'll pull all out. If not, it needs a little skim coat of filler. So let's keep working on this spot here. That's where both hands come into effect. I kind of use this hand to kind of help keep the radius here. I bet you it may come out of that. Maybe. Starting to see some gray poke through. So again, and a bit of a low spot there. I could keep sanding just this groove out and get it smooth, but it'll actually show up as a divot in the paint later. Now that's one of those things that we have the time, we got a little bit of body filler I'm gonna mix up. Might as well take full advantage of it and use it. So let's probably have to call that good because I see gray and gray. So that's the low spot, simple as that. So you can see this kind of works like guide coat. Now you understand the why I don't use guide coat, because I don't necessarily feel I need to or add a potential contamination. And there's actual special paint for guide coat to give you the contrast, but you can see a night and day difference even through the camera. In person, I tell you, it's even more vivid. So really don't need to use the guide coat when it comes to this primer. Really like it. All right, block sanding, besides being an extremely dirty, messy job, you can see dust everywhere. It's just part of the necessary evil of getting your car nice and clean. But something else I want to make sure I stressed or made it a point if I haven't already, but as you can see here behind me, the hood's on the car, front fender, fender extension, lower valence is up there in the front. I've got the doors on the car, trunk deck, everything is bolted on as the position it's going to be when driving down the road. Now, call me crazy, maybe I'm overthinking it, but if I were to have that hood on some sawhorses and block sanding it, and it wasn't supported by the hinges and the latch, I almost feel I would want to kind of relax or twist a different way. You block sand that thing beautiful on the sawhorses, bolted on the car with the spring tension of those hood springs, hood latch, I think it's going to move a little bit and could cause maybe a warp or a wave in the hood. So I guess how I like to see it, this is how the car is going to be going down the road. I'm going to block sand it just like this. I'm going to do the body work just like this. Then once I'm all happy with it, I'm going to take it apart and do all the painting. I know it seems like a lot of steps in there, but that's how I get a good finish, or at least I feel it comes out really nice. It does take some more time, but I guess we said at the very beginning, time, that doesn't cost us anything on this build because we're absorbing the labor. The only way to do is materials and parts into this. So what's a little more time, right? So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, why the car is all bolted together. And you're going to see as you keep watching this car, I'm going to take it back apart and paint it, the edges, and then I'm going to put it back together to paint it, because they're painting this thing, that metallic paint. And there's some few steps there I'm going to tell you about here at some point that you need to keep in mind when painting metallic paint too. But the next thing we're going to do is these body lines here on that fender in the front and the back. How do you keep those clean when doing block sanding? That's what I'm going to show you. All right, let's talk about this body line here. There's a nice clean body line on these cars. Now, we've actually reconfigured this in a few videos back. You saw how you use a piece of tape. So it's basically the same idea. We've already defined the line. I've already sanded the top panel, and you can tell I stopped when I hit the peak. I didn't keep going past. I kept the sanding block nice and flat to the panel. I didn't keep it twisted or tipped up. I kept it the same dimension and drug it all the way to our body line. So I've actually got a pretty clean line already right now. So the last thing I want to do is screw that line up to make sure it just doesn't stay straight. So I'm going to take a piece of tape now, highlight this line, and I want to sand the bottom up to that line so make sure I don't go past it or go over it, so I can make sure I keep this body line super clean and straight. So back with my favorite tool, the old masking tape. So we'll put this where we want the line to stop at, so it prevents me from sanding too high and causing damage. I spent a lot of time making these body lines pretty, so last thing I want to do is erase them from the car. So now I've got this piece of tape here. I'll sand all the way up to the piece of tape. It's not super durable, so you can't just lay on the tape, but this will kind of make a spot where the sanding block will stop. Here, I'll work this part here. You can see I'm going right up to that tape. We'll keep going until it looks like this here. So I got a little more sanding on that area there, but you get the idea. Let's keep working that body line. Oh, it's a super clean line. Now, when it's all said and done, I'll probably go over that line just a little with the block, because I don't want it to be razor sharp, but I want it to be really defined and straight. So the reason I'm using the tape is to make sure as I'm blocking this out, that keeps that, assures that the line is straight. Because you can see here where it's actually dipped down a little low. If I were to paint that, you'll actually see the line dips. Now, if I sand this, it should pull that line back up straight, so the whole thing will be level all the way to that point. There we go. Change direction here. Alright, now, that's kind of where the line stops. It doesn't always go all the way here. And now at this point, that line, if I peel this tape off, should be super clean and sharp. You can see right here, that looks good. So that'll help keep it and ensure that I have a nice body line when it's all said and done. Now, gotta keep working on getting this part here and this part blocked out, but making some good progress. Well, so there we go. This fender, at least the outside face here, is all blocked out. And all the dark spots here, those are still our areas of concern or low spots. Now I'm gonna come back and put some of the finishing putty, really thin coat on all of those areas there. Now, let's just use our imagination. You check out the bottom part of this fender, little gray came through, but I don't really have any of these dark spots. So this fender here, if it all came out looking like this, the next step would be then 320 grit. As long as we don't have any weird spots, then we would have been done. So it's kind of the same thing, repeat process. We're gonna put some body filler on these spots, super thin coat. We're gonna recoat the entire fender with our high build primer, and then this time around after that coat, should get us where we need to be. So there you have it. That's the VVG technique for block sanding a car, getting all the imperfections squared away and done. Something else kind of maybe keep a note of. Maybe you have seen this, but they'll take that finishing putty that I was using. It's up there on the hood now. And basically mixing it up and coating the entire car with a skim coat, bumper to bumper, top to bottom, basically, and doing the same thing. Maybe it's more efficient, maybe it's quicker in their eyes, but to me, I feel like it's expensive. This stuff's not cheap. So this here, I'm only using it in the areas that I need. I know it ends up on the floor like you see down here, but I'm not using it in excess. I'm not basically sculpting the whole car of it. I'm actually sanding it, finding the problems, and only filling and repairing those areas. So I guess I'm trying to save a few bucks. And the other idea is, I feel if you coat the entire car with it, maybe you're leaving more filler on it than what's necessary. And something about the thicker the paint or the thicker the body work, the less durable the paint job is. Because I drive these cars, I put them on the road. They're going to get rock chips thrown at them. And I've always been taught the thinner the material on there, the more chip resistant that it is. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but that's how my brain is wired to tell you how I do this and why I do this. So do what you want with that information. Maybe you put a whole skim coat of putty on it and it works great for you. Keep using that technique. This is just how I do it and the results that I get. And speaking of that primer there, love this stuff. It's the first time I've sprayed it, first time I've used it. I like the color change. I don't have to use a guide coat. There's enough of a transition that I know what parts need done. And I've used almost just one piece of sandpaper. It's not clogging up. It's not damaging the sandpaper. So this stuff, love it. So far so good. Really enjoying it. But next go around, I'm going to keep working on doing the sanding here in the background. You guys don't need to watch me sand a car. It's not the most exciting part of the job, but a necessary evil. But I'll get these spots filled in, get them sanded, high build primer again, and then I'm going to block it out. And there's a few things I might show you before we go ahead and put some finish coats on, at least educate you on. But at this point, I'm going to get this sanded. I'm going to shut the camera off, get a whole bunch more work done, and I hope that whenever I get to the next part, we'll grab the camera and get something going really good. And of course, anything I can help you with, any questions, thoughts, or concerns before I get past this step, let me know. Hit me up in the comments. Nonetheless, ramble on enough, grab the camera, and we'll catch you guys next time.